Okay, students, today our topic of discussion is Geoffrey Chaucer. Before talking about him, let us make ourselves very clear about the scope and nature of this discussion. We are students of English history, and in the beginning, our job is to make our concepts clear. We need to be very clear about important events and personalities in history. We can later on think of improving our understanding, knowledge, and information about these events and writers or personalities. But for the present, my job in this discussion is to make a background for highlighting the contribution, the importance, and the significance of what Chaucer did to English language and English literature. Generally speaking, when we talk about Geoffrey Chaucer, we say that he was born in 1340. Some historians believe that he was perhaps nearer to 1342 or 43 when it comes to his date of birth. However, there is a general agreement that he was born in 1340 or 1340 to 43. When we talk about Geoffrey Chaucer, it is always desirable to know about the currents and the cross currents of the time in which a writer lives or in which he has lived. So, for that purpose, we focus these historical events and then the salient features of the time in which Chaucer lived. As long as we do not have a clear understanding of these features and then these historical events, we may find ourselves confused about what we are trying to learn. So we start here with the historical events. There were many other historical events that had occurred in the Middle Ages or in the medieval times. I am planning to record separate videos or lectures on some of these important events. But we should not forget that our topic for today is Geoffrey Chaucer. So we just focus on these events only to make our minds clear about what we are talking about what kind of situation existed in the Middle Ages, and how do we appreciate Geoffrey Chaucer as the father of English literature. So let's talk about the Hundred Years' War. As I told you that we will be discussing Hundred Years' War or maybe the Black Death or even the Peasant Revolt in another discussion. For the time being, what you need to keep in mind is that when you talk about the Hundred Years' War, it was basically between England and France. I hope many of you remember that there was a very close connection in relation between the people of France and the people of England, particularly after the Norman conquest. And then we also had a discussion in which we had said that these people had intermarriages and they had family relations and they had familial ties due to which they were close, and then of course there were certain disputes also. So in talking about the series of disputes which were very many, uh, one such dispute related to the succession to the French crown. The English people or the English rulers believed that they had the right or they had the what we can say this the legal right or the moral right to rule two kingdoms on either side of the English Channel. English Channel is actually between France and England. So the point that they wanted to make was that if a ruler is ruling England, he has also the right to rule France if needed. And uh, in situation when that king had a right to become the king of France. So please don't get confused. Just keep this in mind that the England and French or France, they had this issue of kingship or monarchy, or you can say the right to rule. Some English rulers, because of their familial ties with France, would think of becoming the king of France also, along with the king of England. But what happened? The English authority uh, did not realize that their dream of becoming French rulers, or their dream of uh, controlling France, would not um, yield any result as long as there is hostility between the two nations. And English people had this impractical approach of controlling the France or the French people without their consent. French at the same time had this problem of not being strong enough to convince the English rulers or the kings that what they were thinking was baseless and impractical. So there were claims and counterclaims to the throne of France. This is important. There were claims and counterclaims. Means I can become the king of France. No, you can't become the king of France. These are two claims. Claim and counterclaim. And what was the result? The result was in the shape of different battles. And of course, political intrigues, means secret plannings and destabilizing each other in order to win the argument to your side. So the concluding result was the Hundred Years' War, in which the English and French people engaged, and there were several disputes behind waging this 100 Years' War, but one main reason was the right to French throne. So what happened? On the one hand, you are French people, and on the other hand, you are English people, and then there is a series of battles taking place between the two nations on the pretext of controlling either of the two crowns. This resulted in the 100 Years' War. Please, now this should be there in your mind. We leave it here. Let's leave the 100 Years' War. Now we come to the rise of Middle English in towns. Now this is something which we have already discussed. I told you that the merchant class or the middle class was on the rise because of the development and establishment of certain towns, the introduction of many markets, and the increasing population that required several commodities in order to fulfill their needs. And for that you need shopkeepers, for that you need merchants, farmers, and all these people, and then of course they will be paid, they will be earning money, and this will result in the emergence and then the rise of a class which we generally identify as middle class. And when this middle class grows, so do the towns, and then the cities, and then you know that there is this industrialization process and commercialization. So this was historically happening. Now this was not an overnight uh, event. It was taking place every day in England in the medieval times. Then we have the Black Death. The Black Death is actually um, a reference to a pandemic, and thankfully, as we have a clear understanding of COVID 19 now, so it was a pandemic like COVID 19, and this uh, was really ravaging and destructive in its consequences. People believe that it continued for some 4 years from 1347 to 1351. And during these 4 years, mm, it was killing people everywhere. And if this is clear that this Black Death was a pandemic like the one we have right now in the shape of COVID 19, then we leave it here and we just talk about the consequences of such a pandemic. It is believed that some 25 million people in Europe died because of this Black Death. This was a kind of a plague. Now, what happened? If people are dying, you need to continue with your routine life. Your routine life consists of many things. You need to run schools, institutions, you need laborers, you need servants, you need helpers, and you know that every day we come across so many people who are engaged in several businesses, and because of their engagement, we have a fulfilling experience of life. Now imagine if there is a situation that people are dying. Some people are dead, some people are ill, some people are suffering. So it means that when we talk about these people, they do not include a particular section of society. They cover the whole society. Means this death would kill uh, a laborer, a shopkeeper, a merchant, a trader, a ruler, a politician, a religious cleric. So, all these people will be suffering because of this pandemic. And if this is the situation, then this is going to create a shortage of people. Shortage of people for completing or doing activities of life. Means if you are building a house and if the mason is dead, who is going to build your home? If you are transporting vegetables or fruits or some other commodity from a far away market, and if the truck driver is dead, who is going to drive that truck for you? So it means that you are suffering, you are deficient in terms of the relevant and skilled people to help and facilitate you. So, what would happen if you need 100 people for doing something and you, in return, have an access only to 10 people? They will ask for more wages, for more money. They would be expecting more money for their services. So, if they are expecting more money and you pay more for their services, it means that they will become richer and richer with the course of time. So, on the one hand, the number of people would decrease, but on the other hand, the number of the wages or the salaries of those people who are in service will increase. And if they are getting more for what they do, they then you can expect them to be having more resources and switching over from the poor class to the middle class. So there is going to be a class shift too because of the pandemic. And then you have the general evolutionary situation in terms of the Christian religion and the Catholic society of that time. And there was corruption, as it has been all the time relevant to our discussion when we talk about our um, religious class in our society. we say that there is corruption. When you talk about corruption, it is not only about money, it is actually the abuse of power, the misuse of power. So, in the medieval times, it was believed that the Catholic Church was engaged in immoral, illegal activities, but as the religion exercised its powers, the people had to obey and to comply with their orders because they had a great respect for the religion, and the people who were associated with religion would exploit this situation. Peasants revolt was in relation to this. You can when you talk about the middle class, then you should remember the Hundred Years' War, the Black Death, and then this peasant revolt occurred in 1381. And there were several grievances of the peasant class or the laborers or the working class. But one such problem with that time was the government had decided to fix the maximum wages of the laborers. But the laborers were not happy with that because they knew that the society needed their services and they could earn more for what they offer in service, and therefore they were not happy that the government had decided to fix the maximum wage limit. They believe that if you impose maximum wage limit, it means that you are restricting us from earning more. So this was one reason that these peasants, they revolted, and this was also in the background. So here I stop, and in the next part of our video, I will try to associate these historical events with the features of the age of Chaucer or the Middle Times. So wait for the next discussion.